So first, in terms of being desirable, customer choice, and that is something that has increased dramatically over the past few decades. And as a result of choice, they have a tremendous amount of power. And we need to understand then the role of customer service, culture, and innovation in terms of attracting and keeping and retaining customers. Customer service is really about focusing on helping the customer. And I would go beyond just service. You know, you can get service from anybody, but real customer service is really focused on the experience the customer is having as you are delivering the service. And in a sense, climbing into the customer's skin and understanding how they experience your service or your product, whatever it is that you are delivering to them. The world, in a sense, has become an online shopping mall. And regardless of what you're selling, wherever you're selling it, there is somebody who is selling something similar, maybe better, maybe slightly worse, but to the customer, before consuming that service, it looks similar. And so to the customer, they have choice, and quite a bit of choice. And also we need to see our competitors not just as those in the same industry as us, but if your customer has $1 and 100 places that they could spend that dollar, all other 99 choices that they have, those are competing for the same dollar that the customer is spending. So really understanding what it is your customer wants and what they experience when they actually consume your service is really critical. And culture, your culture, is what makes that sustainable. Culture is one of these nebulous things. You can't quite put your finger on it. It evolves. We don't have control over it really, but we do have influence over it. And I think if you are a business leader, you need to value your culture. And you can influence your culture simply by being very clear to everybody who works with you what your values are. What are your fundamental values? And also being very careful about who you recruit into your organization. And if they don't fit, if they don't match your core values, you need to make those tough decisions and part ways. And as people see that the nature of the people that you hire, the nature of the people that you fire, and hear how clearly you articulate your core values, you will in a sense have some control over the culture of the organization. And your culture is a real living thing. And that truly is what your customers will experience. It's the energy that's in your culture that your customers will brush up against and interact with, and that is truly what they will remember in terms of interacting with your organization and the value of interacting with your organization. Now that experience hopefully is compelling and fulfilling and satisfying, but what we must understand is the customer's expectations are constantly rising. That whatever it is we're delivering today, customers are going to get comfortable with it, they're going to get used to it, and then there's going to be competing forces for the customer's attention that are offering what seems like a greater experience. And so we have to be in this position and build a culture where we're constantly raising the bar, we're constantly understanding with more insight and more depth what is it that the customer is looking for, and how can we ensure that we deliver this better than anyone else. And that really comes to building a sales team that is proactive. We must learn to collaborate with our customers, but that collaboration is not just in the back office, in the R&D shop. It's got to be in the front office, at the front end. As salespeople interact with their customers, they must have the tool set and the thinking and the strategic sense to collaborate with customers and really be proactive by understanding what is it that customers are trying to achieve strategically, and how can we help them. And rather than the old school salesperson showing up and trying to understand customer needs, you know, what are the customer's pains here and how can we help, the new school salesperson mustn't just be a problem solver, although that is critical. We must be problem solvers. But we must be, more importantly, we must be problem definers, problem identifiers, having this ability to go into an organization and identify problems that the organization themselves don't know they have. And being able to do a type of thorough investigation that says, look, if you're trying to achieve this, here are some obstacles that we're seeing that are going to stand in your way, and bringing that level of insight to the customer that they're going to deeply appreciate the perspective that you have as a business person, not just a vendor who's trying to sell them things. You know, in our work, we do a lot of work with customers around their strategic planning, their strategic objectives. So we really get to see the other side, the internal conversation that customers have when salespeople are not present. And then because we do a lot of consulting with sales teams, we also get to see the conversation that sales teams are having with these very same customers. And often the two are so far apart. What salespeople believe is important to the customer and what they're geared up to talk about with the customer, and what the customer is actually prioritizing, there's a complete disconnect. And so we need salespeople who are better equipped to meet with senior executives, to have strategic conversations with those senior executives, to understand what those executives are trying to accomplish, and then to have the ability and the insight to tease out and discover challenges and obstacles that the organization is facing that are going to interfere with their ability to achieve those strategic objectives. So this proactive way of thinking, not waiting for problems to emerge, but going in and being proactive and understanding emerging problems before they emerge. And that identification is highly valuable today, and it's a very different skill set from sales of the past. The other thing we need to think about is the sales team. And we really need an upgraded sales force. You know, in the past, you know, we were looking for what I would call bowlers. You know, people who could stand up to the line, understand what the target is, and it was all about their individual performance and how closely they could get to the target. And the really good ones could hit strikes consistently. Different ball game now. You know, we were bowling in the past. Now we're playing basketball. And all of these top performers of the past and that skill set of the past, it's the wrong game. Those skills don't fit in today's game. Today's game is a team sport. You know, we're playing basketball now. And I'm sorry, those skills of bowling don't match. And basketball is a team sport. And your individual performance doesn't matter if it's not within the context of the team's performance. And we need sales professionals today who see themselves as part of a team and who can work in a coordinated fashion. And I'll even extend that to say they have to see themselves as part of their customer's team. That we're not playing against the customer. We're not trying to strike the customer. We're not trying to take advantage of the customer. We need to work with the customer. And to do that, again, it goes back to understanding what is the customer's goal, what is the customer's objective, and how can we be a part of the team and play with them and help them to achieve that objective. And I think this is a really, it sounds like a small thing. It is a big thing. And you know, in my career, I've met people who have grown up playing team sports, and now they're in business. And this concept of team, it's baked into their DNA, and they truly are team players. And that's the kind of thinking that we need today to be successful in sales. People who understand that they are part of the customer's team, they're not just playing for themselves. In doing that, a big piece of advice I can give you in terms of managing your sales opportunities, managing your sales funnel. Every salesperson who knows what they're doing keeps track of their sales, and often they'll have their own little black book, regardless of the company's CRM. But they're tracking their sales opportunities. I'd like to encourage you to separate those opportunities in your sales funnel into two different streams. One stream I call the push stream, and the other stream I call the pull stream. The push stream are those opportunities where you are executing on your sales process. You know that you're at step 3 of a 7-step sales process, and you're moving them to step 4. I call this the push stream because the progress of the sale depends on your activities. you're the one who's, you're now ready to submit a proposal, so you're moving it to the proposal stage. Or you're now ready to do a demonstration or have a discovery meeting, so you're putting it in that phase of the sales funnel. The pull stream is very different. The pull stream really doesn't depend on your activities. It's influenced by your activities, but it depends on the buyer's activities. And it's really built on an understanding of the buying process and an understanding that buyers are trying to accomplish very specific things. And because they're trying to accomplish these very specific things, they need help. They need external resources. And so they are pulling into their organization these external resources in order to help them achieve their very specific objectives. When a customer sees what you're offering as valuable and essential to them achieving their objectives, they will pull you into their organization. And that's what we call the pull stream. That these are sales opportunities that you have in your funnel where it is the customer who is doing the pulling. That they have a vision of an end result and they see you as a means to that end. So they are pulling you into their organization to achieve that. And the way, very simply, the way we differentiate between the push stream and the pull stream in a sales funnel is to simply ask one question, and that is, has the customer, has the potential buyer scheduled a next meeting with the sales team? Because time is a currency, and we want a demonstrable proof that the buyer is spending their currency in exchange for value. And currency is time. Eventually it will be money, but initially it's time. Are they paying attention to your sales team? Are they spending time with you? If at the end of each meeting you have with the customer, they are willing to schedule another meeting with you, that tells you that they are pulling you into their organization. The moment a customer or a buyer puts their hand up and says, why don't we play it by ear? Why don't you give me a call? Why don't you chase me in the new year? What they're saying is they really don't see your value, and you're not essential to their solution or to them achieving their objective. And so by asking this simple question, we can go through the sales funnel and we can clean it up. We can take those opportunities where there is no next meeting scheduled and put them on one side of the funnel, and those opportunities where there is a next meeting scheduled and put them on the other side of the funnel. And those opportunities that are in the pull stream are going to move faster. The end result will be a bigger sale, and the end result as well will be a more successful implementation, because there really is desire on the customer's part to be successful with you. Those opportunities that are in the push stream, it doesn't mean that they won't close. It's just, it's less likely. In fact, it's highly unlikely. Things can happen and things change on the customer side and you might be successful, but we want to see that there's risk to us associated with these opportunities. And so our objective has to be, how do we get those sales opportunities that are in the push stream, how do we get them in the pull stream? And our strategy needs to be, how can we re-engage the customer and make sure that the customer wants the solution rather than depending on sales techniques and sales tricks to move the opportunity forward. How do we create customer pull? And I alluded to it earlier. It really begins with understanding the customer's goals, understanding the customer's strategic objectives. It's not salespeople going in just trying to figure out what problems are and what the needs are and how can we satisfy these short-term objectives. It really is understanding the long-term strategic objectives of your customers. When you understand that and you understand the role you play in helping the customer build whatever it is they're trying to build or achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve, when they connect the dots and see that you are actually strategic to them, that you can help them move towards their strategic objectives, that's what triggers customer pull. And this really is rooted in neuroscience. The neuroscientists today are understanding very, very clearly with all of the brain imaging technology they have today, they're seeing that emotions light up whenever they are associated with goals. In fact, that they are associated with goals. And whenever we see something that will help us toward our goals, our emotional system lights up. Or conversely, whenever something enters our lives that will frustrate our ability to achieve our goals, our emotional system lights up. And in this case, the negative emotions light up. In the first case, the positive emotions light up. And so customer pull is emotional. That customers see that you can actually help them achieve something, and that makes them emotional, and it makes you desirable, and they want to pull you into their organization and pull your solution into, you know, their world, their implementation, so that they can get to where it is they want to get to. So that's the first real takeaway that I'd like you to have is, in today's world, we must be desirable. And it's a world of clutter. It's a world of a lot of noise. And in order to break through that noise, we need to be very, very clear and help the customer be clear, help the buyer be clear on our link to their goals. You know, we understand what they're trying to achieve, and we can help them achieve these longer, more strategic objectives. And when they make that connection, that's what makes us desirable. The next thing that we need to focus on in terms of this new world of sales is being authentic. Every company has a history. Every company has a story. And the truer you are to that story, to that history, the more authentic you are. The more authentic you'll be perceived by your customer. What is it you're selling today, and why? And when I ask why, I'm asking why both on a personal level and on a company level. If your story makes sense, your customer will perceive you as authentic. If, however, there really isn't any sense to what you're doing, you know, yesterday you were selling something else, and today now you're selling this new thing, and you show up maybe with a new, you're at a new company selling something new, and you're calling on me, and I'm wondering, like, what's the story here? Why are you selling this? It doesn't feel congruent. It's like, you know, yesterday you were talking about bowling, today you're selling basketballs. Why? You need to be authentic. And so spending some time personally mapping out your story and being able to explain to a prospect very succinctly why you're in this business. What is it about this business that you're passionate about, and how did you get here? And then secondly, why is the company in this business? What is the company story? And every company, it doesn't matter how large the company is, the largest companies in the world have a story. And they have I call it the story of origin. There's a reason why they are in this business. And it, you know, it could be a founder came to this country from another communist country, and they were just amazed at the freedom that they had here, and they realized they had an opportunity to do something, and so they started this little 5 and 10 cent store, and they were just committed to customer service, and that's been at the root of the company's culture ever since. And so we're all about ensuring that we have what our customers need, and we constantly innovate in order to do that, whatever it is. Why is your company in this business? And learn to tell that story. Because more than ever today, customers want to do business with the real deal. They want authenticity. And the only way you can have authenticity is if you and your company have a narrative that makes sense. Because that's what people are buying. They're buying your story because your story is a trajectory. You're coming from somewhere and you're going somewhere. And if I can see where you've come from and all the points along the way, I'm in a better sense to predict where you're going. And I'm not going to expect a sharp right turn and you're going to leave me in the lurch. So customers want to buy authenticity. And the way that you communicate that authenticity is through your story of origin, both at a personal level and at a corporate level. That authenticity, the thread that we are looking for when we hear your story of origin, the thread we're looking for is your mission. What is the purpose of this company? And if the purpose is just to make money, your story is not going to make any sense because you'll do anything to make money. And so as I chart your company's history, it really is going to be all over the place. But if you are true to your mission, and if your mission is true to your customers, there is going to be this consistency, there's going to be this congruence over time. And so for company missions to really make sense, they really have to be a purpose statement. You know, sometimes we have these mission statements, and it's just language. It's just clever language that was put together by clever people, but it's not authentic. And I think if we think in terms of mission, from a sense of purpose, what is the purpose of this company? Why does this company exist? If this company was to go out of existence, who would care and why? And so our mission, our purpose has to be rooted in our customers. We exist in order to deliver value to this customer base. We're not just about selling products or selling services. We're about helping this kind of company. So, you know, we're in business to help chief executives, or we're in business to help salespeople, or we're in business to help entrepreneurs, or we're in business to help single mothers, or whatever the case is. First, figure out, who are you in business for? Because your business must revolve around your customer. And if you don't know who your customer is, you can't have an authentic mission for that customer. So spending some time to figure out who is our customer, and then how do we help them? What are we in business to do for this customer? And I think in terms of shareholder value and profitability, all of that will come after. And that really is a consequence of achieving your mission. It's a measure of how well you are satisfying your company's mission and how well you are satisfying the true needs of your customers. On the way, as you're building this story, your company story, as you move into the future, you're going to be forced to innovate. As I said in the opening slide, the customer's expectations are constantly changing. They're constantly rising. That whatever it is you're doing today that's fulfilling them, you can't assume that it's going to continue to fulfill them, because their expectations will rise just based on their circumstances and their experiences. And so organizations are constantly innovating. They're in this race to innovate. And this is not new. You know, when I started my sales career, I worked for a technology company. And this was just at the time when PCs were becoming popular. Prior to this in business, all computing was done on mainframes or was done on mini computers. And then the personal computer started to get into the business world. And so the company I worked for developed financial management systems that could run on a PC. And this was revolutionary. It meant that managers who previously had to wait for the mainframe to spit out monthly reports, and then they would look at those monthly reports to see what their financial status was, but they knew as they were looking at these reports that they were outdated, that the report is telling them basically where they were maybe 3 weeks ago or a month ago. And they didn't have a good sense of where they were with respect to their budgets. And so this company very quickly saw the opportunity to develop financial management software that could be run on a PC by an individual manager. And just by tracking their own transactions, they would know right up to the day what their financial status was. And so, you know, they taught me the value of what it was they were selling, and I was out there selling it, and it was great. And then at a company sales conference one year, they rolled out a new piece of software. I had never heard anything about it. Nobody else on the sales team had. And the guys who were running this business, there were two partners. One was on the sales and marketing side, and the other was really a genius on the R&D side. And so this genius on the R&D side came up with a salary management software application that would not only enable, so the first application enabled them to manage their budgets, the managers to manage their financial budgets. This would allow them to manage their human resources costs, their expenses on the human resource side, and really understand where they were and what level of salary the different employees were at, and it was just really fantastic. The problem was, he didn't talk to anybody about it. He just had this great idea. He went in and understood how, we were selling to public sector, understood how salaries worked in the public sector and benefits and all of that. And so he dreamed up this solution. And then he just dumped it on us as the salespeople, tried to educate us on it, and then we went out and tried to educate our customers and sell to the customers. And it was a colossal disaster. It was a complete disaster. It didn't go anywhere. And yet, when he was demonstrating it to us and showing us all the features, it looked cool to us, but he didn't have that collaborative approach with customers and didn't know which of the customer base would really want this thing and why, and didn't spend any time with the salespeople to get feedback from us to say, you know, what is it, what are the challenges that your customers are facing, and how could we build this for them to address these challenges. He just went off into his room, built this thing. I'm sure it was built over several years, and there was quite a bit of financial investment in it because it really was quite nifty, and we were quite impressed when he was demonstrating it to it. Nobody bought it. Nobody bought it. And you know, that was going back a couple of decades. But the same thing is happening today. Organizations are gambling when it comes to innovation. And this is high risk. What we recommend is that innovation should be built on insight, and that you should be innovating for your customer. So again, it goes back to the mission. Are we in business to make money, or are we in business to help people? And by helping enough people, we can measure how effective we are by looking at our profitability and looking at the return to shareholders. And so innovation must be designed to help customers, and salespeople must participate in this process, because salespeople are on the front lines. They're the ones who every single day they are interacting with customers. And so in terms of, if you think of an early warning system, it is the sales team that is going to see first how customers are changing, how their world is changing, what is emerging in the customer's world. And they're in the position because they're typically very relationship savvy. And so they have built these trusting relationships with customers. They're in the best position to understand from customers what the challenges are that they are facing and what's interfering with them achieving their objectives. And armed with that knowledge, we can then collaborate with our best customers to figure out how we can help them with the next iteration or the next wave of challenges. And so this really speaks to the final piece of this that I want to speak about, is being aware. Being aware. Innovation must be built on insight. And that insight is what can lead to really disruptive innovation, where your competitors, you just hit them out of left field, and they had no idea it was coming, and they don't know how you could have figured it out. And the reason you can figure it out is because of your insight. I had the opportunity to sit in a conference by one of the large technology manufacturers, one of the largest technology manufacturers in the world. If I said the name, you'd know right away. And what fascinated me was learning that this organization is now hiring anthropologists. They're going into the universities and they are hiring anthropologists as part of their employee base. And they're asking these anthropologists to basically move in with their customers. And they get permission from the customer to allow an anthropologist to live with them for 3 months, because they believe that the next big thing is using technology to help customers age in place. They call it age in place. They can age at home rather than being carted off to a nursing home or some kind of caring facility. That with the right technology, they can extend the amount of time, particularly people living with dementia, people who are stricken with dementia, that they can, with the right technology, they can stay at home longer. And so they're asking their customers who have aging parents or parents that are, or people in their family that are struggling with dementia, if they could have an anthropologist move in, set up cameras, and just study them for 3 months. And it's that depth of insight that they are now collating and consolidating and figuring out, okay, if this is how people actually live, if these are the challenges people actually face when dealing with dementia, how can our technology help? So when they finally roll out, and I don't know what the technology will be, but they are collaborating with these customers. They actually take the technology and they create prototypes out of wood. And they ask the participants to carry this wood around and pretend that it is whatever it is they're trying to develop, and show how they would actually use it. And so when they finally do roll out the technology, they're not guessing. This rollout, this innovation, is based on very deep insight. Now, we don't have to go out and hire anthropologists, and many of us can't afford to do that. But I think we can take that anthropological perspective with our customers, particularly salespeople. We can have salespeople who are trained to think, who are trained to observe, and who are trained to stick with their customers. In the past, we had salespeople that once they closed the deal, they'd move on. Okay, who else can I find? And not realizing that the opportunity for growth, the opportunity for greater value is with our existing customers, spending time with them. And as hard as it is to get a prospect on the phone, if you go to an existing customer and say, hey, can we meet for lunch, or could I come over, or do you mind if I just kind of sit and observe for a while? Those customers, because they want to be successful and they see you as somebody who can help them be successful, are far more willing to spend time with you after the sale. And that is where the opportunity to gather insight comes from. And so I think we need salespeople now to have this longer term view. And we need business executives to value the sales force as a resource and as a source of insightful and strategic information, and not just as in the past where you do all your development, all the R&D is done without any communication with the sales force, and when the product is finally made, then we tell the sales force, okay, here are the features, go get them. This is ridiculous. Let's work with the sales team and have the sales team work with the customer and really build this collaborative environment that enables us to gather insight that will enable us to build innovations that really do make sense. And I mentioned earlier, salespeople typically are very relationship savvy. They just have that emotional IQ or emotional quotient, EQ, that enables them to build relationships over time. And the relationship that we're really looking for from our sales team is to develop what we call the trusted advisor relationship with customers. That it's one thing to be a vendor, that I have a need, I'm going to pick up the phone and order, so many hours or so many units of whatever your products or service that you're selling. That's one thing. But that's just a supplier relationship. When you really have an in-depth relationship is when you've become a trusted advisor. And a trusted advisor is somebody, I call a vendor when I have a known problem and and I know what the solution is, and I want to know how quickly and how much it'll cost to get that problem solved. A trusted advisor is somebody I call when I really don't know what the problem is. Symptoms are beginning to appear. These are troubling symptoms. I'm not really sure what's wrong. I'm going to turn to my trusted advisors. And so when the problem is well defined, I call a supplier. When the problem is not well defined and not clearly understood, I'm going to call on my trusted advisors, my inner circle. And this is the level of relationship we're looking for salespeople to develop with customers. And there's two parts to this. One is trusted and one is advisor. To be an advisor, you need to have some business acumen. You need to have some business sense, that you understand how business works, and you're aware and exposed to strategy and how strategy is executed. And so you've seen quite a few things. You've seen things in different businesses, in different industries. So when the customer turns to you, you have that ability to advise them, to offer some insight, to offer some perspective. That's the advisor piece. The trusted piece is different. That's one thing to be an advisor, but to be a trusted advisor, you have to have trust. And a lot of people are confused about what trust is. They believe that because they are good people, therefore they are trustworthy. But that's just not true. You don't have to be a good person to be trustworthy. And I know that sounds, like heresy. But it is true that bad people enjoy great levels of trust. You have terrible criminal gangs that are ruthless, and they enjoy some of the highest levels of trust, because trust really isn't based in whether or not you're a good person. Trust is based on how well you understand what I'm trying to achieve and how much you buy into what I'm trying to achieve. If you understand very clearly what my objectives are, and you buy into those objectives wholeheartedly, I know I can totally trust you. That whatever situation presents itself to you, I know that you will make the same decisions that I would make in that circumstance. And in a world that's constantly changing, in an environment that's very dynamic, what we need around us are people who buy into our vision and people who buy into our objectives. And when we see that level of buy-in, these are people we can trust. And so it's this combination of, do you have business acumen? Can you actually advise? Do you have a perspective? And then most importantly, do you understand what I'm trying to achieve? And do you buy into it? So the sales conversations that we have with customers, we have to elevate these conversations. And these conversations have to take place or certainly begin at a strategic level. We need to understand our customers strategically. And then from there, we can drill down to a specific problem set where we can help them with that problem. But it's the strategic understanding that's going to build trust. And it's the strategic understanding that's going to enable us to be proactive, and it's going to enable us to really deliver value over time. Finally, what I want to mention, one other slide after this, but what I want to say here is having that kind of relationship is what sets up what I call the pipeline of knowledge. That we are overwhelmed with knowledge today. And all of this knowledge that we have, quickly, it has an expiry date on it. Whatever we know today, there's no guarantee that this knowledge that we have today, no matter how great it is, will be valuable a year from now. It could be completely obsolete. We don't know what the future holds. And so what we say we are expert in today, a year from now, it just might not matter. It might be completely irrelevant. And so our knowledge has to be refreshed. And the most important knowledge to be refreshed is understanding our customers, understanding their world, understanding their challenges, understanding their objectives. The greater that understanding and the better the pipeline that we have, so that as things change in our customers' world, we know right away. And that's just fluid. If we build these kinds of relationships, our organizations will be far more agile and far more valuable than our competitors. And we will really build a relationship that's going to be mutually profitable. We'll constantly put ourselves in positions where we can propel our customers forward, we can truly help our customers, and we'll constantly have opportunity to increase our profitability with our customers because we're increasing theirs. Final question I'll ask is, what's value? What is value? And the definition of value that we have, most salespeople will talk about value added. Our services are value added, or our product is value added. But if you challenge them to define, what do you mean when you say value added? What exactly does that mean? Most salespeople really don't know what the term means. There's confusion about it. And really the confusion comes because in the industrial age, there was one definition of value added. And that definition has cascaded into this post-industrial era. And so we're still using that definition, even though it really doesn't work. And that definition boils down to this. In the industrial age, how we created value was very simple. We took raw material out of the earth. We put it through a value-added process, and we created finished goods. So we created product by adding our value-added processes to raw materials. And that's how value was defined. And this is no longer true in this modern age. That we could go through that value-added process and then deliver something to a customer, and they just don't care for it. That millions, and maybe even in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars could have gone into the production of this product. And by the time it hits the marketplace, something has changed in the world of the customer, and they no longer value this thing. They've moved on. And so value is no longer, or value add is no longer under the control of the supplier. Value is with the buyer. And how we must define value today is that value is a perception. Value is a perception. And it's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. So value is something that is perceived. It is a subjective experience. And so value now is something that we can deliver, but we need confirmation from the buyer that what we're doing really is valuable. And the buyer demonstrates that confirmation by exchanging something of value for what we're offering. And what they have of value, they really have two things. One is money. So they'll exchange money for value, and the other is time. They'll spend time with us if they believe that they'll get value in return. And of the two currencies, time is the most important, that we are in a time-starved world. And so when people grant meetings to us, when they sit with us, it's because they think they're going to get something of value from us. And if we are consistent in delivering value for the time spent with us, they will continue to spend more time with us. And then it's not long before they are spending money with us in exchange for even greater value. So we have to constantly prove in every interaction that we understand where they are going, and we understand our role in helping them to get there. And anytime we can help somebody get where help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. Zig Ziglar just died the other day, I think about a week and a half ago. And when I was a young man, teenager, 17, 18 years old, I read a book from him, and he said in that book, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And that is totally insightful. And decades later, it is still true, and it will always be true, that people will reward us. Their emotional systems will light up, and they will value us if and only if we help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. So think about what you're selling, think about who you're selling it to, and be very clear about how you help them achieve what it is they're trying to achieve with whatever it is that you're